What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. As we're getting set for the Northern Trust, I feel like I have to shout that because it is always in all caps. So I am shouting at you right now across your earbuds to get you set for the Northern Trust PGA DFS, the first event of the FedEx Cup playoffs. My name is Jim Sanas. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here as always by Brandon Gdula. He is the managing editor for numberFire. Brandon, the Northern Trust is here. How you doing?
Good. I'm naturally a little more energetic because of the all caps. It's just like the players.
And you're wearing a player's hat. I noticed that. You wanted to go for the all caps, like synciness, right? Is that a word? Synciness?
Yeah, that's definitely
synchronicity, syncopation. What's the word I'm looking for here?
I'm just gonna leave you go.
No,
you made up a word like 2 years ago, and I still think about sometimes, but I forgot what it is off the top of my head.
Well, you don't think about it enough.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like you and I together sometimes throw some shade at the FedEx Cup playoffs because it's not something that we particularly care about. But after this year, kind of like amped up for the FedEx Cup playoffs. This is a really good field. The fields will just get better and better in theory. I don't really like small events, but I mean, as far as just watching it goes, I'm pretty excited. So I'm going to open my heart to the FedEx Cup playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the weird thing about the FedEx Cup playoffs is like we've been starved of sports for so long, but now the FedEx Cup playoffs are occurring during the NBA playoffs, which is wild, during the NHL playoffs, during Major League Baseball, which clearly trumps everything. NASCAR is in its playoff push right now. So like everything is happening right now. So even though there's like $10 million on the line, like even then we've been so starved for sports. It's hard for me to like jazzed about the individual like FedEx Cup, but like these events, like you said, these are awesome fields, and that's going to make it fun by themselves. Even if you like me, kind of disregard the allure of the FedEx Cup playoffs in general.
Yeah, I mean, I don't look.
You've been grinding the FedEx Cup points for the past 6 days in your lab, just like spreadsheets flying. You've set 6 laptops on fire trying to, calculate all the scenarios. So I know you're jacked for this.
I cannot confirm that. Okay. But I mean, I don't have to do a whole lot of work.
You're not denying it.
I'm not, but I mean, every time you watch a PGA event, all it is projected FedEx Cup points, and it confuses, I think, everyone who watches. So yep. I haven't had to do a whole lot because they're always trying to project out the FedEx Cup points for everybody.
Yeah, making it easy on us for sure. So let's take a look here at the Northern Trust. As mentioned, this is the first event of the FedEx Cup playoffs, which means it's 125 golfers in the field, and that means a higher percentage of golfers will make the cut. Hallelujah for that. The problem is it's a very tough field, so it's still not going to be super easy to make the cut necessarily, but the regular cut rules do apply here, and the top 70 golfers in FedEx Cup playoff standings after this week will advance to next week. So it does matter kind of, where golfers are. You could think about that if you want to. It kind of, as we discussed last week, this might not be something you want to factor in super heavily when it comes to your process, but it is at least worth noting that after this week, the field will be cut to the top 70 in the FedEx Cup playoff standings. The course is TPC Boston. It is 7,342 yards and a par 71, so pretty long for a par 71. The last time the PGA Tour played this course was in 2018 for the Dell Technologies Championship. So you can look to that event for course history. Do not look at the Northern Trust history because that was a different course. They did play annual at this course through 2018. So we have plenty of course data to dig through. It's just not as recent with 2019 being skipped. So keep that in mind. When you're looking for course history, make sure you focus specifically on TPC Boston rather than the Northern Trust. And Brandon, when you do that, what are some stats that pop up as being important to emphasize for this week?
Yeah, so TPC Boston's historically hosted, as you alluded to, I guess not really an illusion, but you said the Dell Technologies Championship, but also the Deutsche Bank Championship. So again, don't use the Northern Trust history. Make sure you're using the right course. Past winners at this course Bryson last year. Before that, Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, Ricky Fowler, Chris Kirk, Henrik Stenson, Rory again, or I guess for the first time, and Webb Simpson. So pretty good crop. Longtime FedEx Cup, event. So generally the golfers are pretty good, but I think that says a lot about this week. We know it's a tough field. I think that we're going to want to have, I'm going to say the word already, but a little bit of balance whenever we can get it in our FanDuel lineups. Golfers, of course, need to make the top 70 in the FedEx Cup point standings to play next week, but every golfer in this field can do that with a win. And I'm sure everyone can probably do it without a win, but I don't really know how the breakdown goes. But as for the course itself, which is very much more important to me than the FedEx Cup points, we need strokes gained approach. That's just number one. Always the most important stat. If you're new to golf, learn that stat. If you're not, you already know this, but approach explains scoring better here than the average course, actually, according to Data Golf. So it's kind of a little bit more important than it normally is. Strokes gained off the tee has been downplayed a little bit, but I think that we're going to want driving distance, especially in a field like this, because when you cluster a lot of the best golfers in the world, one of the few things that can really separate in terms of anything remotely predictive is distance. Distance doesn't really come and go round to round. Putting around the green, even iron play can go. So I think distance is going to be toward the top of my list. And it's kind of a pretty straightforward list for me. I'm going to go with strokes gained approach, distance, par 5 scoring, actually, even on the par 71, bent grass putting, or just putting in general. Putting is something I've been trying to weight in more and more because it is a little bit more consistent than I used to think. And then birdie or better rate, because this is for FanDuel and we want those fantasy points.
Yeah, and my process led me to the same thing when it comes to distance, because looking back at 2018 at TPC Boston, the top 20 finishers in that field, there were 6 different golfers who were in the top 20.
How dare you?
Who were in the top 10 for that full season in distance, who were outside the top 100 in accuracy. Those guys were Tony Finau, Dustin Johnson, Bubba Watson, Brooks Koepka, Rory McIlroy, and Keith Mitchell cranking the top 10. He was exactly 10th in distance. That's why I got tripped up there. But yes, distance, a lot more important than accuracy here. And like you mentioned, like we need guys who can score. And like there are some scoreable holes on this course, and I want guys who can do that. So distance, a key factor for me too. Approach. I'm also looking at birdie or better rate gain, which is a stat you can find over at Fantasy National, just because, again, I want golfers who can take advantage of those advantageous goals. What?
I mean, I listed that, but you made it sound like you were a little hesitant.
It's revolutionary.
To list. No, I mean, I'm not like taking credit. Just
it's revolutionary. No, you can't take credit because I said it first. So.
Can't wait for Jim to cut up this podcast, even though it's streaming.
And you should look at strokes gained approach because it's actually more important than the average course. Can I just say verbatim what you said and see if anyone notices, especially you?
Yeah, I will note. I mean, I don't usually listen to what you say. I just
no, you have to listen to what you say, like in order. Because if I repeat you, then I'm just going to repeat what you say verbatim and say it's mine. So deal with it. You just got to live with this. This is a fact of life. Embrace it now.
All right. Byron Buxton's pretty bad at baseball. So.
How dare you? Oh my gosh.
We have to repeat what I said.
No, I don't want to. I'm so upset. I'm wearing my Twins shirt and everything. This is terrible. I don't have my Buxton bobbleheads over there. I can't get it right now. But he just know that he is scolding you. But I am also doing the same thing as Brandon. So we're pretty much on the same page here. We want distance. We want approach. We want guys who can generate birdie or better opportunities. So I think it's very logical, that path for this week. So overall, I think I feel pretty good about the process for this week, and I think there are a lot of good golfers who do fit that process too. We'll talk about some of them here in just 1 second, but first, Major League Baseball is officially back, and so is FanDuel's Home Run Challenge. Every day, you'll be able to draft any 3 hitters on the slate where only home runs count. If your lineup scores 3+ home runs in the contest, you'll win a share of $2,000 in cash. If your lineup scores 6+ home runs, you'll earn an additional share of $10,000 bonus cash. It is a great way to make your night that much more interesting, but don't just take my word for it. Head to FanDuel.com and play for free today. For more details, visit FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app today. Eligibility restrictions apply. Also, a quick reminder, a lot of stuff going on right now on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. It's not just this PGA Heat Check. We also have the Daily Ice and the Daily Veek with the Daily Deke with Tom Vecchio. I think I was thinking of Tom's last name and the V slipped in there. The Daily Deke with Tom Vecchio, easy for me to say. Those are NBA and NHL podcasts going up each night to preview the next day's DFS slate for NBA and NHL. We have the Solo Shot, which is our baseball podcast each morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, also on the DFS podcast feed, and a NASCAR podcast for a doubleheader in Dover coming up later this week. So make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed to get those podcasts right as they are posted. And if you like what you hear, leave a rating and review as well. We also have the Solo Shot on YouTube each day. We have the PGA podcast on YouTube right now. Some of you may be watching there as I'm talking. NASCAR podcast is live on YouTube and our 4 p.m. stream too. So a lot of stuff. All the sports going on. Sports! Let's talk about it and talk about TPC Boston and see who has done well here in the past. And Dustin Johnson, Brandon, a very interesting guy because he's been kind of off and on recently and also been kind of off and on at times at TPC Boston. So talk me through DJ 11-6 for this weekend.
Yeah, so Dustin Johnson, someone I've had a bit of a weird stretch with lately. I'm sure he doesn't know that, but I've been living with it.
He cares. Cares deeply.
Yeah, I mean, like this is not a brag, but I was in on him at 30-1 at the Travelers because it was good value, and then I just started like fading him and even recommending to fade him outright. Because his odds went back up to what you would expect for Dustin Johnson. The iron play wasn't really there. The reason I liked him was the off the tee play, but he's been putting really well and kind of made me look silly a few times. But since his win, he was cut. Then he finished 12th at the St. Jude. And then I recommended to fade him at the PGA, and that almost destroyed me. I was really sweating that one. But the reason I've been kind of off of Dustin Johnson lately is that the irons weren't really there. They've been good most weeks since the return, though. 4 of 6 starts he's gained in approach, and that's pretty scary. He's a very streaky putter, and he can really be in the mix for leading a field in strokes gained putting, which, again, it's not random. He's a good putter, and I think that looking deeper at when guys are actually capable of adding 4, 5, 6, 7 strokes from putting, that's going to help you win or have a really, really good placement whenever everything else isn't really clicking. So that's got him those top 2 finishes, was really good putting. At TPC Boston, which is why we were talking about him here, he has a 4th, 27th, 44th, 8th, 18th, and 7th. He's gained strokes tee to green in all of those starts. According to Fantasy National, he's second in the field behind only Paul Casey in strokes gained tee to green average at TPC Boston among golfers with at least 5 rounds played here. So I've really been struggling to peg Dustin Johnson. He's 11,600 on FanDuel this week. The ball striking seems to be kind of back. The putting, of course, can spike, which is, again, required almost every week for to be in the mix for a win. So does DJ draw your attention this week?
So he draws my attention, but like the problem is like everyone in that tier does, and not everyone has like the streakiness that DJ has, I guess. And I think that when I compare him to the guys right above him, like Rahm, Rory, JT, Bryson, it's hard for me to like I think in that grouping, I might rank DJ 4th or 5th out of that group. He's also right above Xander. I prefer straight up over DJ. After Xander, there's a bit of a fall off until we get down to like the high 10,000s. But so I think the problem I'm going to have with DJ is that I don't like him as much as the guys above him, and I like some guys below him more. So it's not a situation where I'm not buying into what he's done, but I'm buying into what the other guys have done more, if that makes sense. So I'm not like actively trying to fade DJ, but I'll probably have zero exposure to him despite that, just because there are other options I like more. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and I'm with you.
Okay.
It's just a little scary whenever Dustin Johnson gets going, but I do think I just prefer other high-priced golfers. We have plenty to pick from. So DJ, I see what you're doing. Again, I know we got this back and forth, you and I.
Yeah.
But I think maybe this.
He's taking notes in every word you say right now,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't many golfers who would care less about what I have to say about him.
One golfer who might care less is Paul Casey. So let's talk about Paul Casey. Break him down here because you mentioned that Casey has a good history at TPC Boston. We were talking about DJ. Casey, another guy who played well at the PGA Championship, actually tied DJ for second there. And he's had some pop weeks here. He has played at TPC Boston 6 total times. 4 of those came in the most recent 4 events there. He withdrew in 2015, which, sometimes happens with Paul Casey. But after that, he had finishes a 2nd, 4th, and 21st. Casey actually shot a 66 each of the first 3 rounds in 2016 before a 73 on Sunday sunk him. Even when he finished 21st in 2018, the irons were still good. He gained 3 on approach there. He just lost some on the greens, which can happen for sure with Paul Casey. But he's back on bent grass. That is his preferred surface. So Casey, a little bit cheaper, kind of fits for a more balanced build. Is he someone you're targeting here at 10-2?
I definitely like Paul Casey, and I'm going to say it a few times, but I really like a balanced sort of build because we get golfers such as Paul Casey at 10-2, Victor Hovland at 9-6, and the reason I bring up Hovland is that only he and Paul Casey are both top 10 in strokes gained off the tee and strokes gained approach over the past 50 rounds, according to Fantasy National. So Casey has the course form. He has the recent form. The stats are always good for Casey. So I think Casey's not necessarily my favorite golfer in the 10,000 range. I'd probably put him about 3rd or so.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that I can't use him along with the other 2. So
are you including like Cantlay in that?
Yeah, so Cantlay's a little bit of a cheat, but he is, 10-9, so he technically fits. I think Cantlay's a great pick. Hideki at 10-6, and then Casey at 10-2. That's a pretty nice, 3-man core. I
actually like Finau a lot too, and he's 10-7. So, I think that
you can't hate on Daniel Berger right now.
No, definitely not. With what he's done, he's been disgusting. So I think what the allure of Casey does to me is something you kind of mentioned, where we do potentially want to go more balanced. So, I'm still okay getting a Justin Thomas or someone at the top. But then if my second person is Cantlay or Finau, that should allow me to get back up to Casey without totally punting. And I think that is a route that I would likely take decently often this week.
Yeah, there's more incentive to consider your second golfer a little bit cheaper so that you're not in the mid 9,000 range, although that's a pretty solid range this week. But instead, if you could get up to 10,000, 10-2, those golfers are just underpriced based on the nature of the field.
Yeah. Casey, 10-2. I do prefer Hovland, who you'd alluded to, who's cheaper. But I can do both. So I think that I agree. I think there is a lot of appeal in going a bit more balanced for this week. And one guy who could fit that as well is Gary Woodland. Gary Woodland is $9,500. What have you seen with him at TPC Boston in the past?
He's finished top 30 in 5 straight years, top 20 in 3 of the past 4. That comes with 3 of 6 starts with at least 5 strokes gained from approach alone, which is nuts. And that pretty much assures us that the course fits his eye and his ability to see, what he wants to do. He's gained off the tee in every start here since 2013 as well. A little bit problematically, Gary Woodland's had some intriguing splits since the restart. He's been terrible with the driver, then kind of started to show a little bit of a pulse with the disco stick. I was on fire with the irons, but has now lost strokes from approach in each of the past 2 starts at the St. Jude and the PGA Championship. Still, 2 top 10 finishes since the restart with a good amount of tee to green results that would make you think that he's really got that form going. So I like Gary Woodland. He's also gained putting in 6 of 7 starts. It just not, yeah. But $9,500, and that goes right along with what we said about Paul Casey, Victor Hovland. We're getting really good golfers priced down, and so it's hard not to look long at Gary Woodland at 95. There's good data here. We know that the ball striking is good. The putting's there right now. So interest level in Gary Woodland?
Pretty high. I think he's my player picks actually.
No.
He's $9,500. But I think the reason I like Woodland is like you can very easily sell or tell yourself a story where Gary Woodland finishes top 5, and like that's not true with everyone in this range. Like if he can get both the ball striking categories to mesh within the same week, which he very well could, because he's a guy who does have some distance. He got some giddy up there. As you mentioned, he's had times where his irons have been hot. So I think that Woodland makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned the 2 top 10 since the restart. Like there is tangible, and like we can like look at data to see the upside. It's not just potential upside. Like he's actually done it too. So I would say Woodland is another incentive for me to be a bit more balanced. $9,500 is like, I mean, that's not super easy to get to if I'm trying to get to like Paul Casey too. But I think with Casey, with Woodland, with Hovland, all being in that range, I think that that's a really good tier. It's always going to be the case when it's a good field. Like that's always going to be a good tier. But I also think that allows me the potential to be a bit more balanced in order to get more exposure to that tier. And I think even though it's going to naturally be that way because the field is so good, I still am willing to take that bait and go with a bit more balanced bill for this week.
Yeah, I mean, I've really kind of went from thinking I was smart enough to hit those, cheaper golfers and loading up on the studs, but we know that the studs don't always come through. It's just not how golf works. Right. And so you're kind of elevating your lineup's floor, and then in theory, it's ceiling by rostering golfers with better cut odds, better top 20 odds, better top 10 odds, obviously better win odds. So whenever we can do it, I like that, and we can definitely do it this week.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. So let's talk here about Jordan Spieth, because I have not been tempted by Spieth for a while now, but he's $9,400. Great history at this course, so I think it's at least worth discussing the idea of Jordan Spieth. He's had 6 tries at TPC Boston. Spieth has a pair of top 5s there. He was 4th in 2013, 2nd in 2017, then he was 12th in 2018. That 12th in 2018 was even with just 0.7 strokes gained via putting, so that's good. And some parts of Spieth's game have been getting better recently a little bit. He's gained an approach in 4 straight and 6 of the past 7 events. That's good. It's just the off-the-tee play that is still broken, and he should benefit from this being a distance course rather than one that requires pristine accuracy. So I am still not in on Spieth here, but I am less opposed to him than usual. I think that's the right way to phrase it. I'm not sure if I'll wind up going here, but I'm not like totally just crossing him off. What is your view of Spieth entering this week based on what you've seen here recently?
So he's in general come into this event with better form.
Yeah, I think that the other part is like we don't have last year's data when he was playing kind of more similar to what he's at right now.
Yeah, now at the 2018 event here, his like last 5 events, strokes gained tee to green was actually negative 2.4 on average, according to Fantasy National. It's currently 2.1 over the past 5. I don't really know if 5 events is enough to be predictive, but in general, all these performances came when he was golfing a lot better. Over the past 50 rounds, he's gained strokes from his ball striking, so approach and off the tee, in 42% of his rounds, according to Fantasy National, which is just toward the bottom of the field, of course. Boy, Mackenzie Hughes, 24%. That's wild that he's made it this far. But I think Spieth is... Would it surprise me if he finishes top 20 here? No. Have I seen enough yet? No, I also haven't. We need to trust longer samples than just the past few, because we kind of know right now that what Jordan Spieth is like kind of an average iron player. And if he's performing above that currently, you'd have to think he's going to regress back toward an average iron player, unless this happens to be the true turnaround, which I think we've been there enough times with Jordan Spieth where we can't necessibly feel that way.
I don't know if we specifically have. We haven't really taken that bait yet, but I think it's at least I'd rather have him gaining strokes via approach, even if it's just like, in 6 to 7 events and then losing.
Yeah.
So that's why I said I am less opposed to him, but I'm not sure I'll get there.
Well, here's the thing.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, here's the thing too. He's $9,400.
So I can get Woodland and Hovland for $100 and $200 more.
Hovland is. Oh, wait, I thought Hovland was 98.
Is he 90? I think he's 96.
No, he's 96. I thought he was 98. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I prefer other golfers to Jordan Spieth.
I think there is a pretty big fall off after Woodland. So I think that my philosophy is going to be try to, I'm going to have people below him, but I'm okay kind of skipping over most of the mid or the low 9,000 range, getting some 8,000 golfers and using them to get back into the Woodland Hovland range rather than going with guys in the Spieth tier, because it gets pretty shaky after Woodland, at least in my eyes. There's maybe one guy kind of down there who I don't mind, but it gets pretty shaky. So to me, I think I'm probably not going to use Jordan Spieth, but I think we had to discuss him just because of the history at TPC Boston. He's had better results recently, less of a cross-off for me than he was previously, but still not there quite yet. Let's move on to current form and talk about some golfers who are on the upswing. And Brandon, you missed this because you were on vacation. I kind of recommended Jordan Spieth, or Jason Day, I should say, not Jordan Spieth. I kind of recommended Jason Day in consecutive tournaments. I don't remember the last time I recommended Jason Day
Never
on the podcast, but it happened back-to-back times. So we're changing lives here. I am changing. We're all changing. And I just wanted you to know that it happened.
You're growing.
Yeah, exactly.
Even during peak Jason Day, you never liked Jason Day.
I mean, I never grew super enamored, I guess, but I used him then. I haven't used him.
Yeah, but the problem now is he's priced up at $11,300.
He was $9,400 a couple weeks ago.
I mean, he's in form. We can always bank on the short game from him, but the ball striking has been there as well. He now has 4 straight top 7 finishes while gaining strokes in each of the 4 areas in each of those 4 starts. So if you grid that out as 16 different data points, they're all plus, which is what you want to see from a golfer. Obviously, you want to see that from more than 4 starts, but again, we know Jason Day can be that good. So if he's healthy, I'm excited. I'm not saying that's the case, but Jason Day actually led the PGA Championship in strokes gained approach, which is pretty telling. The irons, not quite what they used to be over a larger sample, but the last time he's actually had negative adjusted strokes gained in any single area. So again, you grid out the 4 off the tee approach around the green putting. You scale that back from this year, moving backward. The last time you'd find a single negative was 2008. So Jason Day, even with the injuries, has been phenomenal, despite not really being. It was just crazy just think about that he's been kind of that consistently solid, and we don't think of him as anything relevant. But I mean, Day's a rare golfer who can putt really well, but also be in the mix for the best tee to green performance. So the upside is obvious if he's healthy. So is this another week where you're on Jason Day?
I think with the salary being where it is, I'm okay pumping the brakes for now, because you were talking about how he can putt well, but can also lead the field in strokes gained ball striking or a tee to green. I think that's also true of some other guys right around him in salary. I think that specifically I would turn to Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele as being guys who could do that and are in the same tier as Jason Day, but they've done this over a longer sample than Jason Day. So it's kind of like DJ, where no, I'm not totally opposed to Jason Day. I just like other golfers in this range more, specifically Xander right above him and Cantlay right below him. So I'm not going to use Jason Day this week, I don't think. But if you like Jason Day and you're buying more into it, I would not talk you out of him, because I think that it's pretty legit. And like you said, he's been balanced. It's not just he's winning with his putter, he's winning other places too. So I am in on Jason Day. Not going to use him this week, but I'm not going to push back on him either. I think that like it's been fun to watch him golfing well again.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, we know that Colin Morikawa shouldn't really be in the mix for leading the field in strokes gained putting, but he did that at the PGA, and we know how good his irons are. So I think I'd have to find an extra $100 to get to Colin Morikawa from Jason Day. But again, I'm with you. If you like what Jason Day's done, I don't think there's really anything to say no. It's a what am I trying to think of? I
have no idea.
It's real. Like what Jason Day's done is real.
Legit.
It's not false.
It's not an aberration.
Yeah.
All right. I agree. So it's fun to watch him back. Maybe he will lose some strokes putting this week, but still play well. We can get back into him next week at a lower salary. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world at all. Let's move on to Sungjae Im, because with how good Sungjae was before the COVID layoff, we've kind of been waiting for him to hit his stride again, and maybe we're finally starting to see that. He did finish 9th at the Wyndham last week. Part of that was putting, and he is a great Bermuda putter, so we shouldn't factor that in this week, the finish specifically, but the ball striking was really good too. He gained 4.8 strokes off the tee and 2.2 on approach. That was the most he has actually gained off the tee in his entire PGA career for Sungjae Im. The approach number was his most since he won the Honda back in March, so the best since the layoff. This marks the second straight week that Sungjae has gained in both ball striking categories, though he did miss the cut at the PGA Championship, so it's just a 2-round sample there. But he's $9,700 this week. You've kind of been in on Sungjae this whole time. Have you seen enough to increase your exposure in hopes that he is officially back?
I've actually started to get worried about Sungjae. I liked him a lot. We both did. I think everyone did. The tee to green numbers were so good, the ball striking specifically, but it's possible what happened was he dominated in a lot of weak field events. Data Golf, I reference constantly throughout the podcast, but they have adjusted, like field adjusted strokes gained data, and his like approach numbers last year in 2019 was positive 0.1. So basically just barely above like an average golfer. And then this year 0.18. So a little bit better, but definitely not on the level that I would have expected from what we saw from him when he first burst onto the scene. The like long-term approach is just kind of okay. And that's really what I've been expecting Sungjae Im to be, but maybe he's not that. Like maybe the baseline is that he's a little bit closer to a field average, which is not bad. It's not like he's a terrible iron player. We know better, but the data says maybe he's not as good as I think. And I think it's time for me maybe to pump the brakes, especially in a field like this where I have countless other options.
So you're saying that as he rounds back into form, you're thinking people might buy into it, but you're still skeptical of it? Is that, and you're kind of reevaluating? Is that what you're saying?
Like, I think I need to treat Sungjae Im as a different type of player.
Okay.
One who can gain strokes off the tee, one who's a pretty good putter, but one who's like iron play might not be nearly as good as I thought it was.
And a good point to back that up would be that his big resurgence was last week at the Wyndham, which was not as strong of a field as we've seen recently. So I think that would go towards your argument as well. And I think that makes it, pretty legit too. So some potential reasons to still be skeptical of Sungjae Im, despite the better performances. I
hope not. I love Sungjae.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that like even without factoring in what you discussed, because it's very convincing what you discussed, I would still have Victor Hovland higher. I'd have Gary Woodland higher. But once you account for that too, I think that even then I'd shove Sungjae a little bit lower. I think that's a pretty legitimate point to bring up. Let's move to another guy who is right in this range. Actually, our two other guys are both in the mid 9,000s. Yours is Matthew Wolff. Matthew Wolff, we know he can go long, and this is a distance course. So Wolff worth discussing. What have you seen at him recently for $9,600?
Well, I mentioned that Jason Day led the PGA Championship and strokes gained approach, but Wolff was third. Tony Finau was second, just to for anyone out there who's curious. I always hate when I hear like, oh, this guy was first, this guy was third, and then they don't mention who was second. But that was Tony Finau.
It was assumed that Tony Finau was second. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, look,
he's the best.
Tony Finau's second in a lot of things,
Yeah, if
unfortunately.
Tony Finau wasn't first. Wow. Okay. Tony Finau wasn't first, therefore he must be
Tony
second.
and I got this back and forth just like me and DJ, so we know. But I love
Yeah,
Tony
after
Finau.
he's talking with Bryson and making Instagram videos, he is sending DMs to you to
Yeah,
talk smack. Okay, I get it.
yeah, but
So when Tony eventually wins one, he's going to kiss the ball and just chuck it into the space and says, "For you, Brandon."
that's our arrangement. Well, he's not going to
Okay.
chuck it. He's going to get the club head speed up and just launch it.
Okay, good.
But yeah, so Wolf really great irons at the PGA, which again, very tough field, so that means a lot. Lost 2 strokes putting there when he tied for 4th. We all saw him miss a lot of makeable putts, but he's actually like not that bad a putter. He's 59th on bent grass. When you compare his 39 rounds on bent grass to everyone else's 100 whenever that's available. He's 51st in putting overall over the past 50 rounds, which it's not great, but he's not dead last. And that is, whenever you pair that with how good of a ball striker he can be, that is very telling. Now, I mentioned Sungjae Im was a 0.18 positive and adjusted strokes gained approach from Data Golf. Wolf is 0.24, so I'm not trying to pretend like Wolf is like light years ahead, but we know that Matthew Wolf can get that driver going. And I think that's going to be important this week. So I prefer Matthew Wolf to Sungjae Im for $100 savings on FanDuel this week. What are your thoughts on Matthew Wolf?
I think that he plays really well if you just lean fully into the distance angle. Like you can, and this we don't talk about this a lot, but like I think you can stack lineups based on archetype. And if you just stack guys who are awesome distance drivers, I think that could lead you to a Matthew Wolf lineup. And like I feel like that's something I should do more often, where I just assume that distance is like the key for the week, and then just load up on purely distance guys, like the top distance guys in each tier. I think that I should probably try to do that more often, where I load up on archetypes rather than other things. But I think that Wolf would fit with that. And again, he's in a tier that I like, but I think that what I'm probably going to wind up doing is making Hovland and Woodland like core plays to me. And as a result of that, every time I'm in this tier, I'm going to want to make sure I get additional exposure to them. And that's going to make it harder to get to Wolf because I'm not going to be actively looking to diversify. I want to make sure I get the proper number of shares of those guys. So I think that that's going to lower me on Wolf. Would I be surprised if I wound up with like some shares? No, not at all. Because I think, again, like I can play that distance angle and just load up on guys who can launch it. And he fits super well if I make that assumption, because his distance relative to guys in that tier is really good. So I'll probably have some sprinkles of Wolf, but he does not. I don't want to use him as a differentiation piece. I want to make sure I use the guys who I like in this range as my core for this week, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really have to play. I think the best thing about fields like this, you don't have to play anybody you don't want to play. Sometimes I feel like I have to if I want to roster one of the 3 really good golfers, I have to roster some golfers I'm not that enamored with. You do not have to do that this week. You can basically build a lineup spending between $9,000 and $11,000. You'll miss out on the really high-end studs, but the winner might come from that 9,000 to 11,000 range because the field has, there are pretty much countless realistic winners in that range. I would put Wolf behind Hovland and Woodland specifically. I would put him behind a few other golfers in that range. I haven't mentioned his name yet, I don't think, but I love Tyrrell Hatton. He's $9,800. So Wolf isn't my favorite golfer here, but I think that he's definitely in the mix. And if you do want to differentiate, Jim just said he's not going to do this necessarily, but I think it would make sense if you build a lineup that includes Victor Hovland as like a lineup you really like. You can rotate out Hovland for Wolf, and so it's the same 5 of 5, but then you just have that swap. So I think that makes sense to differentiate in tournaments a little bit. But Wolf as a standalone play, I think is a good play. I just think there are better plays right around him as well.
I think the bigger key is to stack lands, Hovland, Woodland, Henrik Norlander, Andrew Landry. Can we just do like a land stack instead of something else?
You can.
Okay, well.
You sure can, Jim.
I'll do that in the bobblehead against you.
That works.
Someone else who popped up as being a land who wasn't on that list. Who was this? Maybe it was Andrew Landry. Anyway, I'm going to do land stacks. I always get really excited in like NASCAR lineups when I have like people who pair well together, like William Byron and Eric Jones. When I write down my sheet is Byron Jones, I'm like, oh, it's the cornerback for the Dolphins. Cool. So I get very excited about these things. So the land stack will be in play this weekend. Correlations through the roof for this one. So let's finish up with one more golfer in this mid 9,000 range. And a guy who always has pretty short betting odds and can have pop weeks, but never someone I tend to use in DFS, but kind of might be interesting. Let's see Woo Kim. Again, always has these super short win odds because he has these pop weeks, but recently he's putting together some consistency, which may change the way I view him for DFS, because Kim has now made 7 consecutive cuts, with his last cut being the RBC Heritage. In those 7 events, Kim has 3 top 15 finishes, including a 3rd last week. But it's not the finishes that should draw us here. It's actually the approach play, which is interesting. The past 4 events, Kim has gained 5.2 strokes in approach, 2.0, 4.0, and 6.6. He has also gained at least 2.3 off the tee in 2 straight. And he is a distance guy, so that should help us with this field specifically. Kim is $9,400. I mentioned that it does fall off quite a bit after Gary Woodland, but it's a good field. And that is something to keep in mind. So it's not as if, this range is some sort of wasteland. So do Kim's recent approach numbers make you want to consider him this week?
So I give picks for Golf Digest, just betting picks. And we have to give a fade each week.
Uh-oh.
Siwoo Kim was my fade last week.
Okay.
DJ was my fade at the PGA, so I was sitting on.
Who is it this week? Just so I know who to use in DFS. Like who we got?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I will let you know.
DM me. Let me know.
It was Bryson, just because he's 12-1.
Yeah.
And so Bryson's probably going to win now. But I just figured with all the other betting value, I don't need to really go to Bryson. But for Siwoo Kim, I mean, he did have an ace last week, so that does kind of mess with the approach numbers a little bit. But I mean, he's been pretty consistently solid. Mm-hmm. We know that he just kind of, I won't even say comes out of nowhere, but kind of can come out of nowhere to win. But again, the long-term baseline for him is he's actually a negative approach player. Mm-hmm. He's positive right now this season over 75 measured rounds. So you can look at these past 4 weeks or so and say, look, the irons are there, but just mathematically, that means he's playing above what his baseline probably is. Eventually he's going to tank.
Does it matter to you that he's younger? Does that make you more willing to think that maybe there's been a tangible gain?
How old is he?
25.
He's only 25?
Yeah, and it's been around for decades.
I feel like that's nuts. I thought he was all right. Yeah, I mean, it does.
Be sure that I'm not lying to you.
Well, I searched for it. It looks accurate. I don't know. I thought he was way older than that. But
he won the Players when he was 21.
Jeez. That predates. I mean, it does, but it's also. I can name you 5 other golfers I'd rather roster this week.
Let's say you have $9,400 on the table.
Yeah.
Are you going Harris English?
Harris English.
Okay.
Cameron Champ.
So
I might even go Doc Redman.
Champ, the distance angle makes sense, but if I had to pick between Champ and Siwoo Kim, I might go Siwoo Kim just for fun.
Look, I won't. After what happened last week when I said to fade Siwoo Kim, I'm not going to talk anyone out of Siwoo Kim, but I would rather play Harris. Wait, what?
Siwoo versus Cam Champ.
Give me Harris English.
No.
Why?
I listed Harris English right away. I agree with you on Harris English.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay. So you are okay. I'm not forcing this bet on you. Cam Champ versus Siwoo Kim, FanDuel points straight up.
Sure.
Okay, put that down because didn't I win a couple last week?
You won 2 of 3 bets. I had better win picks, but you beat me in the head-to-head on FanDuel, despite having 4 of 6 make the cut, and I had 5 of 6. Because I had built a lineup I liked. I had 12,200 left. I was like, you know what? I'll plug in Brooks Koepka. That was not a smart call.
My lineup's too good for you. I don't need 6 making the cut. I don't even need 5 making the cut. It's too good. Happens to the best of us. Bookmaker odds for this week. Bryson DeChambeau is the favorite at FanDuel Sportsbook. He is 12-1. He is followed by Justin Thomas and Rory McIlroy at 14-1. Then John Rahm is 16-1. DJ and Xander Schauffele are both 20-1, with Colin Morikawa at 22-1. Jason Day is 23-1. We got Patrick Reed at 28-1. And then there is a group of 3 golfers who round out the top group at 30-1. Those guys are Patrick Cantlay, Tony Finau, and Webb Simpson. So we have not really talked about that top tier too much yet. The top tier, at least in my eyes, and in the bookmakers' eyes too, is Bryson, JT, Rory, and Rahm. Who is your favorite in that group?
For FanDuel?
Yeah.
JT, followed by Rory, and then I guess Bryson.
So you as the Rahm whisperer are not in on Rahm this week?
I'm always fine with Rahm, but if I'm nitpicking, his irons just aren't necessarily as good. Now, Bryson's irons aren't actually that good. I don't know if it's still just the shot length data, but I feel like Bryson, every time I see him on a par 5, I get excited, and then he's making par. He'll launch it and then not really. But sometimes it's like, oh, after that drive, here comes an eagle. And sometimes it happens, but I feel like he makes too many pars. I don't have any stats to back that up, so please don't yell at me. But I think the iron play is just better for JT and Rory. So I put them way above the other 2. And frankly, I don't know if I'm going to have any Bryson or Rahm on FanDuel, because if I'm spending up, it's going to be for Justin Thomas or Rory. So I don't really foresee a lot of studs in my lineups this week. So that's kind of the stand that I'm taking.
I think, if I had 10 lineups, if you give me 10 lineups right now, I would probably have Bryson in one. Just because, again, I think that if I had 10 lineups, I would play the distance angle and just lean fully into it for one of them, and he would fit perfectly for that. So I think I would make one of my 10 lineups be a distance assumption lineup where I just load up on bombers, and he would fit that. But the other 9 would be split between JT, Rory, and just totally fading these top 4. So I think we're in the same boat where it's JT and Rory to me as 1 and 2 in that exact order. I feel pretty good about putting JT above Rory. So I think that we're on the same page there. What about the second group? We got a bunch of guys between 20-1 and 30-1. Who do you think there is the best shot to give that top group a run for their money, again, from a DFS perspective?
So that's the DJ through
I think it's Cantlay at the bottom, Cantlay, Webb, and Finau.
So Cantlay and Xander.
Cantlay,
Xander, Morikawa in that order. Morikawa might win this thing. Morikawa is really, really good.
Oh yeah, he's awesome. Just disgusting. I go Cantlay 1, Xander 2, Finau 3. So that's the one split we have. Is I have Finau 3, whereas you have Morikawa. Are you out on Finau, or just like Morikawa more?
I just like other guys more. Okay. It's a field like this. I get frustrated breaking down fields like last week, because it's I don't know what to do. And a field like this, it's so hard to be no, don't play Tony Finau, don't play Jason Day, don't play Dustin Johnson.
Never dare say such a hideous thing on this stream anyway, would you?
Right, exactly. So I'm fine with Tony Finau. I'm almost always fine with the most expensive golfers, but this week I'm probably not going to get to Tony Finau, because I like Patrick Cantlay more, I like Xander more, I like Morikawa more, and that's just the way that I'm going to play it.
I was going to do a Finau versus Morikawa thing, but decided against it. We're going to run away from that.
I got that written down.
No. It's just Cam Champ versus Siwoo Kim. That's all we have. Yeah, but I think that Finau is pretty good, and I would put him above Morikawa. And the 10-7 salary on Finau helps a lot. He's $700 cheaper. Math, yes, $7 cheaper than Morikawa. So I'm okay putting him there. So to me, it's Finau 3, but we're both in on Cantlay and Schauffele as our 1 and 2. Which golfers' odds have shifted since things open? The answer here is everyone. Basically, everyone lengthened. But what are the big ones that stand out to you as far as odds movement?
Yeah, it was tough to list this out because, again, I think every golfer, except for I think Billy Horschel maybe was the same, but everyone. So I'm going to try to go through and just kind of pick out some of the bigger ones. DJ moved 4 units, or however you want to phrase that. I don't actually know what the terminology is there, but 16 to 20. Brooks from 27 to 33. Cantlay from 27 to 30, same as Webb Simpson there. Daniel Berger, 29 to 33. Adam Scott shortened from 42 to 40. Gary Woodland, 50 to 65. Justin Rose, 50 to 60. Same as Matt. Is it Matt Fitzpatrick now, I think, technically?
Yeah, he changed his Twitter account. I don't know if so he was listed as Matt Fitzpatrick on the PGA Tour leaderboard, and it threw me off. And I was I was shaking.
Matt Fitzpatrick and Matthew Fitzpatrick, they're not really the same person.
Yeah. Matt Fitzpatrick is the guy your partner told you not to worry about.
Yeah, that's probably accurate. Matt Fitzpatrick's wearing sunglasses and maybe not wearing a glove on the driving range.
Pants, just because that's how he rolls. I don't know why. It's probably really hot. He should reconsider that. But I can't talk back to Matt because he scares me.
Yeah. I think I'm with you. So yeah, Rose, Fitzpatrick, Victor Hovland, all from 50 to 60. Abe Answer, 55 to 65. Matthew Wolff did shorten from 55 to 50. I mean, there's just everybody moved, so it's kind of hard to read too much into what's really going on here.
Yeah.
But I do think that we can
Adam Scott, because Adam Scott was the Lone Ranger who shortened. Good ball strike and Wolf. But we haven't seen Scott all that much since the layoff. He was 22nd at the PGA Championship. He's right there with Paul Casey and kind of in the Finau tier 2 at 10-3. I can see myself using some Adam Scott this week. Are you in that boat too or no?
I always like Adam Scott. And I mean, speak of someone, you tell your partner not to worry about. I think the reason he hasn't been golfing is because he's just been a GQ model or something. But I mean, it's always easy to like Adam Scott. The layoff is a little bit of a concern, but was 22nd at the PGA. Was carried kind of by the short game, but we know, again, long-term baseline for Adam Scott, phenomenal iron player, good enough driver to be a positive consistently. And actually his short game's improved a lot over the past 2 years. So if we can get even 90%, 80% of Adam Scott as a ball striker with actually better short game, that's a scary thought.
Yeah. If I need to differentiate off of Paul Casey, which I'm not sure that I will, because I want to make sure that I get enough Casey where I'm not spreading things too thin. But if I do need to differentiate in that tier, I might just get up to Adam Scott. I think that I could see myself doing that. Which lower salary golfers have odds that catch your attention this week?
I mean, it's tough. If I make the cutoff $9,500, we have a few realistic shots. Gary Woodland, 65. Kevin Kisner, Cameron Champer, 70 to 1 on FanDuel Sportsbook. Jordan Spieth, Siwoo Kim, Louis Oosthuizen, 75 to 1. Harris English is 80 to 1. Shane Lowry is 90 to 1. But if you make that 9,000 or below, kind of slim pickings there. Matt Kuchar's 100. Harold Varner, the third, not Harold Varner the first. Harold Varner the third is 100 to 1. Russell Henley is 100 to 1 as well. And then Byung-Hun An is 110. So not the best week to look at the sportsbook odds to build a lineup.
Yeah.
And if it is, you're really going to
90 and is now 110.
What's that?
Even Byung-Hun An has lengthened a lot. He was 90 and he's now 110. So even one of the guys who you listed is someone whose odds have lengthened significantly.
Yeah, I mean, everybody,
Yeah.
well, not 3 golfers below opening odds of 100 have stayed the same. That's Harris English at 80, Tyrrell Hatton at 55, and Billy Horschel at 50. So like everyone else saw significant movement. So maybe Billy Horschel, Tyrrell Hatton, and Harris English are getting some, something on them, and so they just stayed and everyone else lengthened.
Because they're trying to get action somewhere. So that's why they're lengthening the odds. So it seems like those may be the Lone Rangers who are getting some interest. From a weather perspective, nothing. There's nothing. The winds will not get above 8 miles per hour the entire week. It's calm. It's cool. We're collected. So let's move on to our player picks here for the Northern Trust. Brandon, who do you have in the upper tier on FanDuel for this weekend?
I'm going to go with Rory McIlroy. I think it's a Rory week. I like Justin Thomas more, but I think Rory is a very, very good play. He was 7th in draft percentage at the PGA Championship at under 20% on FanDuel. So not necessarily off the radar or left for dead, but he's not 35%. So I think we're in business there. The finishes have been bad for Rory, but the drivers there, the irons are a little up and down, but he's won here twice at this course in the past. I'm going to want to differentiate a little bit. I think Rory is a very easy way to differentiate a bit. I don't know which golfers might be 30. Well, it's a smaller field, so maybe close to 40%. They're probably going to be a golfer. I don't know who that will be. I don't think it's going to be Rory, so I feel pretty good going with Rory as an anchor in a tournament lineup.
Yeah, I think that if I don't go with JT and I don't go just fully fading the top end, it would be with Rory, so I'm on board with that. But I do like JT, and he's my first player pick in the top end. Distance matters a lot this week, which, could lead us to Bryson, but distance matters with the irons too, and Justin Thomas can mop up there. He ranks 14th in driving distance and 2nd in approach the past 50 rounds, according to Fantasy National. He and Adam Scott, there we go, there's a name again, the only guys in the field who are top 15 in both numbers the past 50 rounds. Bentgrass is Justin Thomas's worst surface, which may be the one negative here, but he's still roughly neutral there over the past 100 rounds, and he showed he can handle it on this course by winning here back in 2017. So JT is my top stud of the week for both cash games and tournaments. Brandon, any final thoughts for you on Justin Thomas?
No, he's my favorite play. I think I figured out who might be 40% owned on FanDuel.
Did you look at FanShare?
Yeah, fansharesports.com. This golfer has 20 tags as of Tuesday morning. Yeah, 20 tags, but nobody else has more than 13 for some context. So go ahead and guess. You won't guess it. It's someone we talked about.
Billy Horschel.
No.
Who?
Jason Day.
At 11? Oh, he must be a different salary on. If there were hypothetically other DFS.
Well, percentage-wise of the cap, he's about the same. So I don't think that's...
Okay. So people are just really into Jason Day.
I guess. 100% positive sentiment as well.
So again, I hope he scorches it with the irons and maybe gives back a couple on the greens. So we're rooting for you, Jason Day, just not from a finishing perspective for this week. So yeah, I'm okay fully avoiding there. Any final thoughts on JT? Ooh, 20 to 13 is outrageous from a tags perspective.
Yeah. And I mean, it'll probably level out a little bit, but that's a pretty big lead. No other thoughts on JT. Just play him if you want to spend up on one stud. All right.
Who else do you like in this upper range?
I'm going to go with Hideki Matsuyama at $10,600. I really like the savings. It's no surprise that I like Xander as well, but he's priced up a good bit more than Hideki. Hideki at 40-1 outright, I've bet already. Hideki has 4 top 25s the past 5 starts for whatever finishing positions are worth to you, but he's doing that with pretty much no putting help, which is always the case for Hideki. But again, at 10-6, you don't need the win. A top 10 is very realistic. A top 10 with a lot of birdies gets it done, paying off this tag. He has 4 top 25s here in 5 starts since 2014. So Hideki, a very nice way to save some salary this week.
Yeah, I think the putting is why I'm probably not going to be on Hideki, especially because there are so many other good options in this range. I like Tony Finau a lot. I do like Xander a little bit higher, but I like Xander. My number one guy is Patrick Cantlay because we just can't lay off Patrick Cantlay. And this is usually the range where Xander sits, like from a salary perspective. You mentioned he got the salary bump, but it was a deserved salary bump for sure. So Cantlay instead is that well-rounded guy, that well-rounded second-tier stud I'm going to slobber over this week because Cantlay ranks 18th in distance and 9th in approach the past 50 rounds. That has allowed him to rank 10th in birdies or better gain in that time. He is also 29th in putting on bent grass, so checks every box. The approach play has been just okay recently, but it's still been above average, and the long-term form for Cantlay is really, really good. So I would say Cantlay and Tony Finau are two guys in this range I like quite a bit. I know you like Cantlay as well, correct?
Yeah, he might be my number one golfer, price considered, this week.
I'm okay with having, again, like if we're just going to go with the 10 lineup discussion we had previously, because that's probably where a lot of you listening are in. Like if I had 10, I would have one lineup where I go Cantlay as my highest salary guy and then go Finau as number 2. I am very okay with that type of build for this week.
I mean, it's not Finau, but that might be my bobble hat strategy this week. So
Hideki?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Ooh, should we do a Hideki versus Finau?
Oh boy. Well, we know they won't get a win, so yeah, we can do that.
Okay. So we have Hideki versus Finau, and then I have Siwoo, you have Cam Champ. Moving down to the mid-range, who stands out to you there, Brandon?
Sorry, I was making the note. Tyrrell Hatton, $9,800, 60 to 1 outright. Another outright bet that I've made. I like Tyrrell Hatton a lot. Missed the cut at the PGA. Finished 69th at the St. Jude, which came from terrible putting. So if you look at those two, you think, I don't really want to play Tyrrell Hatton, but tee to green game still there. He was like too hot to fade entering the restart, or like toward the tail end of the hiatus. It was like, kind of got to play Tyrrell Hatton. Starts back up, finishes third at the Heritage, fourth at the Rocket Mortgage, then 2 poor showings. And I mean, I'm not saying people are forgetting about him entirely, but $9,800, he could very easily be priced in the low to mid $10,000 range, and I'd feel okay with that. So I think Hatton, just a really easy way to save some money, and should be kind of unpopular relative to where it should be.
The only pushback I would give on Hatton is the distance isn't really there. 72nd in distance the past 50 rounds, whereas other guys in this range tend to be top 50 or better. So that's the one, thing working against it for me with Tyrrell Hatton, but I still would consider him despite that. But I have him below Victor Hovland. So let's talk about Hovland here. Continues to put up decent putting numbers on bent grass. But this is something we talked about a couple of times. But he's 45th there if you compare him to the past 100 rounds for everyone else. It's a smaller sample for him, obviously. But so that's like a good thing for this week for Hovland. Unfortunately, when they were in bent grass at the PGA Championship, it was actually the ball striking that let him down. He lost 1.8 strokes ball striking at that event. Things have been a bit more spotty for Hovland in the ball striking the past 3 events, but over the past 50 rounds, still 50th in distance and 8th in approach. So I don't want to overreact to a couple of events with Hovland. He's still a great ball striker long-term. His samples on bent grass are pretty solid, so I'm willing to bet on a bounce back this week for Hovland at $9,600. Brandon, do the short-term approach numbers and ball striking numbers for Hovland worry you at all, or has he been good enough beyond that where we can still just be fully in at $9,600? Uh-oh, we may have lost Brandon. Oh, well. We lost Brandon, so we will come back to Brandon once he is able to come back into the chat and get his full thoughts here. But for now, I'm going to run through my other player picks just because we will get to those eventually. So I'll run through mine while Brandon is getting back in the chat. And then once he is back, we'll have him go through his. My second mid-salary guy is Gary Woodland. Brandon had talked about him before as being someone who had popped to him. But the performance for Gary Woodland has been super erratic over the past month or so. He's occasionally losing in the ball striking categories, which is not typical for him. But again, I'm going to trust these somewhat longer samples here. And those are good for Woodland. He's 33rd in the field in distance and 17th in approach. That has helped him rank 22nd in birdies or better gain over the past 50 rounds. So he's getting himself lower scores, getting himself chances to put up good numbers. Even with the spottiness in some of the ball striking categories, Woodland has still had spike weeks recently. He gained 6.2 on approach at the Memorial. He gained 8.8 at Charles Schwab. Woodland, $9,500, but he has a path to upside, so I'll certainly take that. So Gary Woodland, another guy who is very much on my radar for this weekend. I'll move down to my value plays, and we'll get back to Brandon here in just 1 second. My first value play is Joaquin Niemann, because back on Bentgrass this week, which means we are back on Joaquin Niemann as well. He fits this course really well across the board, 16th in distance, 14th in approach. He is also 50th in Bentgrass putting. Certainly will take that over the past 100 rounds. And Niemann, even when the approach play wasn't all that great at the Wyndham, Niemann was still able to avoid disaster because his off-the-tee play was so strong. So Niemann just won top 25 in 8 events since the end of the COVID-19 layoff. That's kind of annoying, but at a course where ball striking is so important, I would not be surprised to see him get things right at here. I'm going to finish up with one more. Brandon is back. We'll get to him in a second, but I'm going to finish up with Ryan Palmer here as my final value play. The approach play for Palmer has just been stupid recently. He gained 4.7 on approach or more in 3 straight events. That includes 10.2 at the Memorial, helped him finish runner-up there. It's also a guy who gets held via his distance. Palmer, 46 in the field in distance gained the past 50 rounds. Isn't a good bentgrass putter, but kind of the hope for me at least is that the distance and approach can help set things up for him to have some gimmies. So the guys I have here outside or after going with Victor Hovland, I've got Gary Woodland, Joaquin Niemann, and Ryan Palmer as my final player picks. Brandon, I didn't get your thoughts. Welcome back on Joaquin Niemann. Talked about not Joaquin Niemann, Victor Hovland. Spotty-ish ball striking recently. Is that enough to give you any qualms about him for this weekend?
No, I think this is a different situation where we know what he does best is ball striking. We've seen that like at the high end elite level for long enough. My guess is that he's just been working on the short game, and so the ball striking's taken a step back. He has the best top 10 odds among golfers between 9 and 10K on FanDuel. So I like Victor Hovland a ton this week.
Okay. So the other guys I discussed were Gary Woodland, Joaquin Niemann, and Ryan Palmer. Any thoughts for you on that trio?
I love Woodland and Niemann at their prices. Okay. Probably not playing Ryan Palmer, but probably because I don't think I have to. Okay,
fair enough. Who else do you like in the mid-range for you this weekend?
So I'm going to go with Harris English at 93. I think he's like deserving to be in that mid-9,000 discussion. Finished top 25 in 5 straight starts now. 4 or 5 cuts at TPC Boston since 2012. The stats definitely there right now. 20th in approach since the restart. 26th over the past 50 rounds. Top 17 putter over a 50-round sample on every surface combined, and then 4th on bentgrass over a 100-round sample. So good ball striking and good putting. So Harris English, definitely someone I like at 93. And then my low-priced guys would include Joaquin Niemann if you didn't snatch him up first. But Doc Redman, $8,900. We saw the putter let him down, down the stretch last week, but he was in contention. And really, he's not as bad a ball striker or as bad a putter as a lot of these like cheap ball strikers we always are targeting are. So I like that. And if you isolate him into that sub 9,000 range, he is one of 4 golfers to rank top 40 in both strokes gained tee to green and opportunities gained, which is basically birdie chances. That's a fantasy national stat. So I think that Doc Redman has plenty of upside, and even in this field, even if the upside is more of a top 20. And then the last kind of cheap play, maybe Taylor Gooch. If you really want to get weird, $7,800. I don't think you have to get down here. There are plenty of golfers, at least 3 to 4 golfers in the 8,000 range who are better process plays than Taylor Gooch, even at the savings. Corey Connors is $8,500. Emiliano Grillo, 86 on bent grass. Just you can't feel confident in that. But Gooch is 35th in total strokes gained average since the restart, and he's gained 4.6 or more strokes from approach in 3 of his past 5 starts. So there's volatility for Gooch, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. I'm probably not going to get to Gooch.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. I'm shocked that you said Grillo's name. I know he finished 7th at TPC Boston, so like his name physically was in front of my eyes. But I thought we had quit Grillo.
You can only quit him so long.
Yeah, that's true. But I'll go back at a non-distance course. Non-distance bentgrass. Give me some Grillo. For now, I'm okay. Missing out there. Win picks for this weekend. We will go one golfer, anyone you want, because there are 4 guys at the top. I know that JT is someone we both like, but he does the shortest odds. So I think we'll go anyone you want. And then let's go with someone who is, I think because this field is pretty good, I feel comfortable going with 60-1 or longer as the second one. I believe I won the bobble hat.
You did.
So let me pull up the updated odds here because I know people lengthened since I pulled my numbers. Actually, you have the updated numbers. Is Victor Hovland longer than or 60 or longer?
He is 60.
Give me Hovland. Oh, baby.
All right.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, that kind of screws things up for me. So I bet Patrick Cantlay. I bet Tyrrell Hatton and Hideki, but for the sake of this, where I'm really trying to maximize the chance that I win, I'll go with Justin Thomas.
Okay, so you have Justin Thomas. Who do you want for your longer guy then?
Oh boy. So Hatton's not there. Could be Matt Fitzpatrick, could be Harris English, could be Gary Woodland. I will go with Gary Woodland.
Yeah, I think that's the right choice. So you have Woodland and JT. I have Victor Hovland, and I'll go Rory. I would have gone JT like you did, but I think that Rory is the pretty logical number 2 there. So I've got Rory Hovland. You have JT Woodland. I actually like all 4 of those picks this week, so good on us for making decent picks for once. Maybe we'll actually get some wins out of this. We shall see. Your golf digest picks are good, so I gotta catch up here and try to play some catch up. Still trying to catch up in the bobble hat despite winning 5 of the past 6 or whatever it is.
Yep.
So shows you how poorly the swing season went for me. So still trying to make up some ground there. Any final thoughts for you, Brandon, on what should be a pretty fun event just because the names in this field are so good?
You don't have to play anybody specific this week, so it gives you a lot of freedom. If Jason Day or someone specific looks like they're going to be about 40% rostered, I think the data says just fade that player, and at least in your tournaments and head-to-heads, it doesn't really matter. So I think that you have a lot of freedom this week because there are so many good picks, and I will be voting balanced lineups more often than not. You
also have freedom to go whichever way you want because there are so many defensive plays. Like if you have a strong inclination towards Hideki Matsuyama, you can follow yourself because there's so many justifiable plays here. We gave our thoughts, but also follow your process, and because there are so many justifiable plays, follow your process. And if you really like someone, feel free to commit to them. But I agree, I am probably skewing towards some balanced builds this week, just because the field is so deep. I think that does lend itself to that. That is all the time that we have for today. Should be a pretty fun event, though. As always, make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Wherever you get your podcasts, we have PGA, NASCAR, MLB, NBA, and NHL podcasts all in the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed right now. Also subscribe to the FanDuel YouTube page. We have PGA and NASCAR, MLB podcasts there, in addition to our Q&A show, 4 p.m. Eastern time every day, answering MLB DFS questions. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm at Gdula13, GDULA13.
And I am at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, from the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck with your lineups for the Northern Trust. Hopefully things go well for you. Enjoy the golf. Enjoy everything else going on in the sporting world. Hopefully all of you are healthy and happy. We'll talk to you again next week. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire.